Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the show. Of course, after the resignation of former Green Party leader Annamie Paul, there now is a new interim leader, and they are joining me now to discuss their position. And so joining me now is Dr. Amita Kuttner. So thank you so much for joining me. Maybe we can start out with, obviously, the Green Party of Canada has been through quite a bit over the last couple of months. So maybe speak a little bit about what you see now as your role as the interim leader of the party to kind of unite Greens and just unite members of your party.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And it has definitely been a tough year. It's been tough as a Green to watch all this happen after having organized with the party for a few years. There are definitely some pretty strong divisions. I think lots of hurt circulating throughout the membership. So the healing journey, it can't just be up to me. I'm hoping to facilitate it, but it's up for the members of the party to really step up and be willing to start rebuilding trust and work through some of our conflicts. This, I think, has to be done by being willing to rebuild community. And I think the pandemic itself has had an effect on how this went.
And obviously, there were, many people who were calling for different people to take on the interim leadership position. But maybe ultimately, just speak a little bit about why you made the final decision to step on as interim leader of the party, especially in a really difficult time, as we've both mentioned already.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure that I wanted it for a while, and they opened an actual application process. So I was like, well, do I apply or not? And I decided to put an application in because after everything, I just really wanted to help. When you've seen so many people work so hard for so long, invested yourself into it, then you want to do everything you can to get us back on track. And I really felt like I had the right skills for this moment, and perhaps even better for interim than permanent leader.
And obviously, there's many situations ongoing right now, including the situation in the province of British Columbia. Last summer, there was, a lot of wildfires in British Columbia and even in places like Northern Ontario, and really in many other spaces across Canada as well. So maybe you can also speak a little bit about how you can, go from the challenges that the party's faced over the past year to go back to, what the party's known for, which is, having real and having aggressive climate policies.
I think the awareness of those crises is exactly how we get back to that, because I actually have this feeling that a lot of what's been going on and the development of internal conflict is a reaction to being hyper aware of those external pressures. And when we feel that much fear, generally we go into these modes of conflict. So I think actually resetting to that is going to be essential for the healing process, but also kind of necessary for us to be on the national stage to talk about what's important. It's personally really important to me. I've experienced climate disaster myself. I lost my home and my mother to a mudslide in 2005. So this year, with the heat, the fires, as you mentioned, and everything across the country, but now the flooding and the mudslides, it's so clear. And I hope that it centers us to the fact that we have a lot more work to accomplish together and a lot more that brings us together than divides us.
And obviously, climate change is obviously a really big issue. Many people would argue the biggest issue that we do face, but there are still some people who don't believe in it and who don't recognize the fact that it is an issue, which I think is something that, as much as people might not want climate change to be a thing, it is still a thing that people need to understand. So obviously educating people and bringing awareness to people, as you mentioned at the beginning of your last answer, is a key thing to do. So speak a little bit about how you think you can do that.
I think there's a couple different pieces to that. One is to actually work on the reasons that people have denial about it. And I think that is actually also about fear. We're not individually prepared to lose a lot. And because of that, it's really hard to face the reality. And I think we see globally these sorts of pushes and pulls against reality when reality becomes difficult to accept. So some of that work, other than the peer education, I think is the connection and working through reality with people in a compassionate way. And the other side is, I think, integrating into all policy climate solutions so that we don't have to say, well, we have to talk about climate in order to do these things. We want to propose a plan for the future that happens to solve the climate emergency, but at the same time makes us all have more enjoyable and, enjoyable, but not just enjoyable, but pleasant lives, I guess. easy lives.
And obviously, COP26 happened not too long ago. Both Mike Morris and Elizabeth May went to COP26. So how can you obviously in the position of leader of the party, whether it's interim or permanent, you have to work with various caucus members. So speak a little bit about how you plan to work with the two caucus members in your position as interim leader.
I'm very excited to work with both Elizabeth and Mike. I know them both. I get along with them well. And I see my role as interim leader, as I would hope any leader would see the role, as one of facilitation and support. Greens love to talk about consensus building and how we work in collaboration, but in my experience with Caucus, it's actually been true. Same as working with Shadow Cabinet. And it's a beautiful thing. And so we're going to get together, figure out what priorities are and how to make the work be as impactful as possible.
And I'll ask you one more question and then a final question. But maybe speak a little bit about, first of all, it seemed as if the challenges that the party faced over the last little while largely had some part to do, or at least Amita Kuttner said it had a lot to do with some of the National Council members. So speak a little bit about how you can, unite with the National Council members specifically and members of the caucus, because obviously Green members are important and for them to be united, but the people who run the party also need to be united in order for the party to run well. So speak specifically about that and how you plan to do that.
Yeah, so our federal council is our governing body, and I am going to be one voting member on that body. So we need to be working in consensus and collaboration as well for all the party plans and issues, et cetera. But I think it's important to note here, there was definitely pushback and division, but the majority of our federal council was actually replaced in August. So we have a new council, and as far as I can tell, it's going more smoothly. And I'm actually looking forward to working with all of them to make sure that we move past this chapter.
And just as one final question, speak maybe a little bit about, as a good way to end it off, what you plan to accomplish in your position as interim leader for, I believe the party in the news release that announced that you were going to be the interim leader said that you can be interim leader for 6 months, and then they begin the process of choosing a permanent leader. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that 6-month period will be critical for your party. So speak a little bit about what you plan to do in that period of time to, again, unite the party, which you've already touched on, but just in general, lead the party.
So the period is 6 months before the launch of the leadership contest, as you said, but it'll also be part of my responsibilities to run that leadership contest. I won't be running in it. I will be helping run it. So I'll be interim leader until the contest is over. Hopefully it's not too long of a process, but I do expect, even though it can be up to 6 months before we launch the leadership contest, I think it probably will be closer to 6 months than too much shorter because of how much rebuilding work we have to do. So my priorities are structuring the leadership contest, working with unification and healing, and really just showing up for the members to help them go through that process as much as they trust me to do. And organizing locally, definitely also right off the bat, I hope to be fundraising a lot because we need to get our strength back. And in terms of organizing, it's connecting with everybody across the country, seeing what they need, seeing what I can do for them, and to make sure we feel like we're on firm footing in case we have another snap election.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for joining me, and it's been great chatting with you, and thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.